Hello and welcome to another episode of Pete and the Apologist, where I'm going to rip into a Marvel movie and then Brian's going to say, "No, it's not that bad. It's actually pretty good," you know.
Yes.
But anyway, I'm Pete. We are Comic Books Transformed. That is my good friend Brian over there. Brian, I always respect your opinion. You know what you're talking about.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, that's probably how I envision this going as well.
Today, we're keeping up our routine of talking about The Last of Us, which we're up to episode 6 now. After that, we're going to go and talk about Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, which just came out last week. So I figured let's just go through Last of Us kind of quickly. It's kind of interesting, Brian, because I feel like this episode, even though it's an hour long, there's actually not a lot that happens, right?
Yeah, and it varies quite a bit from the game. I mean, some of the conversations that are had are like spot on, but what actually goes on is fairly different. Um, Essentially, in the show, we have Joel and Ellie showing up, and they're reunited with Joel's really reunited with Tommy, and Joel wants to kind of pass off Ellie and make her Tommy's responsibility, and that's kind of all that really happens. And then they resolve some issues, and then they leave, and that's kind of it. Like that really sums up the entire episode. Really,
it does.
How it differs from the game is that they don't actually ever make it to Jackson. They don't go in the town, so they run into Tommy. Hold on a second. Can you pause?
I can just awkwardly talk. You go take care of your kid. And I love this part where I awkwardly talk and I get to look at Unicron in Brian's basement over there. It always feels like Garth in Wayne's World when Wayne leaves the couch and then Garth looks really anxious. But anyway, for those... here he's back. It wasn't that bad, see?
Sorry. I don't know what the hell I was saying. Maybe we should just restart everything anyway.
No. Come on. We got this. They never make it to that town because why?
Yes. So they run into Tommy at a dam that is giving power to the town essentially.
Yeah.
They're trying to restart the generators. You actually do see that generator kind of in the background of the show, which is a nice little nod, I think.
Yes.
But ultimately, you run into Tommy and Maria there, and that's where Joel asks Tommy to take over. But in the game, it's more about it's more like Joel still sees this as like a job and a mission, and she's cargo, and he just wants to get on with his life. And in this one, and ultimately it's the same. We get to the same resolution where he realizes that he does care about her, and he wants to continue on. But I think they're kind of they show Joel kind of in the show walking around, and then he kind of like almost has like a heart issue or something like that. But he's just struggling with the burden of caring about somebody, really, and it's given him kind of like anxiety. I think more so. So they kind of I think they bridge the gap of him caring in the show a little bit better than in the game, which I did appreciate. But at the same time, I did appreciate the look into the town because you don't get to see it in the game.
Yeah.
At least in the first game.
Yeah.
But the conversations that happen are essentially the same. Ellie's really pissed off that she wants to get that Joel wants to kind of get rid of her essentially.
Yeah.
And she does storm off and they have the argument there, but then he, after a time after they kind of reconcile and they're just going to go off and they don't even go into the town. So that's how it works in the game.
So I want to ask you actually about the first scene in the show, but before I get to that, I want to ask you something else. What you were saying just made me think about it. Multiple times when we've done these reviews, you say that killing so many of the enemies and the fact that there's so many enemies you have to fight, it actually takes away from the story, and that you actually would prefer the story aspects to the fighting, or that you enjoy the story aspect and you actually don't need as much fighting. I wonder how many times I could say actually in like a couple of sentences. But anyway, my point is, when I've played video games, I've seen cutscenes, and sometimes they're really good and they have good world building. And I'm assuming that as video game systems have got more advanced, they look a lot better. But they always kind of feel, no matter how good they are, they always kind of feel subpar compared to movies or cartoons. In a sequence like what you just described, it never feels like in the game, like it's like, oh, let's get through this. I want to go shoot somebody now. It's never like that?
No, I don't think so. The acting in the game is absolutely superb. If anything, maybe like the hordes of scavengers that are coming at you kind of seem like a little empty because they're just like, hey, you shot my friend, or hey, I want that stuff, or something like that, or they don't even speak at all. So it's just like it seems meaningless. But the actual performances of Joel and Ellie in the game are fantastic. Even the other side characters like Marlene, Tess, Bill. Why can't I remember his name?
Tommy.
Tommy.
Yeah.
I almost said Gabriel.
It's okay. Yeah. So the game itself, it has really good cutscenes, and so it's sort of translated to TV really well. What I was going to ask you was, in that scene, one of my favorite scenes in this episode was the very first scene where they find that couple in the middle of nowhere. Is that in the game?
A couple in the middle of nowhere?
Yeah. See, it sucks. I did a lot more research for Ant-Man and the Wasp than I did for this, and I totally forgot to write down the actor and the actress that are in this cabin in the middle of the woods. The actor.
Yes! Oh my God! Yeah. That I've seen that actor in a lot of other things before. No, that's not in the game, or if it is, it happens later.
Yeah.
Or something, because that did not ring. I forgot that even happened.
that actor, he I remember him most from Die Hard with a Vengeance. He's one of the cops that works with Bruce Willis in Die Hard with a Vengeance. But he's in a lot of things too. And I'm assuming that he and his wife are Native Americans. I think he's played Native American characters and other things too. But that scene I really, really enjoyed because of the specific dialogue choices that they make. There's just standard dialogue that people say just to kind of be like, this is the point of the scene. Okay, here we go. We hit it. And then there's like kind of clever dialogue that's very similar to what you'd expect, but like with slight variances. Like maybe they don't say a full sentence. Maybe someone just indicates something with their eyes. And I feel like that scene was a great example of.
Well, yeah, that's the classic like show, not tell, you know?
Right. But like there's clever dialogue that's like written by like Quentin Tarantino or like David Mamet or something, where like someone says a lot of things, right? And it's like, oh, look how clever I am. And then there's this kind of minimalist dialogue, but it gets the point across. And I think that like not Diego Luna, holy crap. What's the fucking Mandalorian?
Pedro Pascal.
Thank you, Jesus Christ.
Although this whole time here, I'm thinking like, wait a minute, is the brother Diego Luna or Gabriel Luna?
Oh shit! Oh fuck! I'll go crank.
Everything is just. I haven't slept in 2 days.
Yeah. Full disclosure: Brian and I are two dads, and we work full-time jobs, and we can sometimes get a little burnt out. Gabriel Luna. Diego Luna's fucking Cassian Andor, right?
I know, but Star Wars and this and Luna's. I mean, come on.
And Mandalorian. Oh my god! Oh, this is horrible. Anyway, Gabriel Luna, who I think is fucking fantastic. He was great in the show. Yes. I think he's really good in Terminator Dark Fate. Did you see that one?
Dark Fate.
That's the one where they bring back Linda Hamilton.
No, I haven't seen it.
Okay, it's nowhere near as good as the first two, but I think it's better than everything that's come since those. Okay. Anyway, I'm going a little off tangent here, but I just really liked that scene with that couple in the cabin. The cinematography for the show is just fantastic. It makes me want to just live in a cabin in the woods, and I'm terrified of nature. I think I'd die like on day 2, even if it wasn't an apocalypse, you know. But this show makes me want to go live in the woods.
But you know what would have made it seem better?
What?
If it was 2 wood-cutting lesbians.
Oh yes, that just die randomly. He's throwing a little Willow joke right there.
Yes, throwing a Willow joke. Although, that's not. We're not. I don't know. I'm trying to save my face here, and it's probably not even worth it.
It's all good. On the Venn diagram, how many people exist that like The Last of Us, Ant-Man, and Willow? It's you.
Yes, it's
That's it. There's the one person. No. We'll see. When we get to Ant-Man, we'll see. But anyway, let's move on from this couple in the cabin, which you kind of forgot about. So
See, that's the comment that's going to cancel us.
yes. There you go. I know. God, you should have seen what Danny and I were talking about on our review of The Puppet Master. Do you remember those movies?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Danny and I did a review of Puppet Master 1989 on the Lastercast, and we said a couple of things. I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna get in trouble for this one." Anyway, back to Tommy and Joel and Ellie, right? So they make it to this town, and it's just so well set up because they make it sound like the people that live in this town are really scary, right?
Yes.
Well,
the couple makes it seem like they're scary. They find piles of bodies and out in the outskirts of the woods, and they do things like that intentionally to make people think they're scary, so they won't come after them, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah. So they make it to this town, and then they get surrounded by this cavalry, and there's a dog there. Does a similar scene happen in the game?
No dog.
No.
There's no question about anybody being infected or anything like that. They just find them, and it's literally Tommy that finds them. Tommy and Maria find them, and then they go back. They help them with the damn thing, and that's kind of, and then they journey to the outskirts of the town, but that's it.
Don't you feel okay? So this is like a super nitpicky thing, but I feel like we live in this world where people nitpick shit to death. Don't you feel like if you lived in this apocalyptic world and you were in a commune, that it would be standard procedure that you literally strip a person completely naked before you bring them into a town, and you look over their body to see if they have any kind of signs of infection?
Well, they had a infection sniffing dog.
Right. No, so I feel like that's the way they kind of wrote themselves out of that, right? Because if Ellie was to be scanned by one of those Fedra scanners, she would come up as infected, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So that dog was just an asshole that just let her get by.
Yeah, I guess that, their system doesn't work as well as they think.
Flaw in the system. Yeah. Either that or the dog actually doesn't attack people that are infected, and maybe people just kind of freak out and start running away or something, and they just shoot them.
Maybe. And you know what? That's actually a really plausible idea. And I mean, I understand why they have to write out of that, because they can't keep going back to the same, they find out I'm infected, they're going to lock us up and we have to escape or something like that. It's better to get through the strengths of this game is the growth of the relationship of Joel and Ellie. And that's what the show is doing, and it's improving it to me.
Yes.
Again, not to take away the performances from the game, because they are fantastic, A-class, video game acting. But they're with the less frequent violence, even the less frequent like clickers and zombies, whatever you want to call them, really. It's honestly improving the story to me.
That is awesome. Yeah, I'm loving it. My wife is not as on board for it as she was before. I think sort of like the peak for my wife Sherry was, Bill and Frank, and then she's not as invested in Joel and Ellie or this world. But she has said to me multiple times that for this show, she kind of doesn't want to watch it, but then she also wants to watch it. And I think that just because of the subject matter and the genre, that's what makes her not interested, and also just kind of the brutalness of it. But there is always something kind of beautiful in every episode.
Yeah. It's a very dark show, but there is a lot of beauty in it. Yeah. It's kind of like a sad contemplative beauty, but yeah.
Yeah. So there is one thing that would have made me not want to watch this episode, and that is the actress Rowena Wesley.
Rutina Wesley from True Blood?
Yeah. How'd you say her name? Rutina?
I thought it was Rutina.
Rutina? Oh, fuck. I looked her up on...
Am I wrong?
I don't know. Rutina Wesley. That sounds a lot better. Rutina. Anyway, here's the thing, right? Did you watch True Blood or no?
I watched 2 or 3 seasons.
Okay. I don't know about you, but I fucking hated Tara on True Blood.
I recognized her, but I honestly didn't remember her enough from the show to have an opinion. I don't like. I remember the gist of the show. I remember that show being like over the top, excessive, and not excessive, but like kind of over the top, like trashy sort of.
Yes, yeah, of course, yeah.
And I mean, I think every character in that show kind of fell into that trap, sort of. So, I didn't think she was. I thought she was fine in the episode. I thought her performance was fine. It didn't really have much to work with from the game. She's not in it very much. She's in maybe one or two quick scenes, and that's it. And she's not pregnant. They don't go back to her house or anything. So they a lot of what's done here is additive.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to say that, like, I'd only seen her in True Blood, and I really didn't like her on that. And then she was in an episode of Arrow, and I was like, oh, no, she's on this show. I think that maybe I judged this actress a little too harshly because I did like her in this show. I think that maybe given the right material, like I wouldn't say that True Blood and Arrow, like season 4, are like, outstanding examples of television, and television writing. But this show is very good. And so I thought that she was a very relatable character. I think that unlike those other two performances, this was a much more subdued performance. And I liked her. I appreciated her on this. I like that she was a lawyer from, where she came from, that she herself had a child beforehand. And I thought it was
a katana, and she has some of her brothers, behind her with no jaws.
Oh, there you go. No, yeah, Michonne. No, what I liked about her introduction and her involvement was that it was like a subtle way for them to tell Ellie about Joel's history. You know what I'm saying?
I did really like the scene where they have like a chalkboard on the wall with two names and some dates on there, essentially stand-ins for tombstones.
Exactly.
Because they're not, the bodies aren't there, I suppose. And then that gives some exposition about Sarah.
Right, yeah. And we got a little flash of Sarah in this episode too. We had a little flash where Joel saw her face at one point. There was a girl in the town that looked like her from behind, and then she herself had a child. And Joel had this vision of like, that could have been my life at this point. I think that you mentioned this, that was Tandy Newton's daughter. But just such a beautiful, beautiful girl. And that one shot they show of her, I was like, dang. Because Tandy Newton is beautiful too. And
of course, yeah.
They just really framed it to where like Joel truly suffers because of the loss of his daughter.
Yeah.
That's like the main thing.
That's the whole thing is he doesn't want to get involved and experience that loss again.
Yeah. That's like the main thing of the show, right? Is like him having to deal with that grief. So, okay, let's get to the end of this so that we can jump into Ant-Man and the Wasp. So they go to this like college town that has a university where they think they have Firefly people working on stuff, right? Is that in the game?
Yes, they do go to the college, and the events that happen in the show are fairly similar to what happens in the game.
Okay, so then they run into those like scavengers, and then one of the guys stabs Joel with the broken bat.
Oh no, it's a little more excessive. There's a lot more guys you have to kill. Ellie even kills a whole bunch of people on her own. She murders like 6 or 7 people.
Yeah.
And Joel is kind of like wrestling with the guy, and they like fall over a balcony, and he falls on one of those like concrete like rebars rather than getting stabbed. So it's like more brutal than the show did it.
Oh boy. I would ask you like what happens with him, because I kind of assume that Joel dies from what I've seen of like The Last of Us 2. But I don't really want to spoil it.
But the events of the game and the episode essentially happen the same way. They get out. They get out of the situation. They ride the horse. Joel falls off of it. Ellie kind of freaks out.
Okay.
And doesn't know what to do. Last week I thought there was going to be a time jump between Sam and Henry and this episode, but the time jump happens between this episode and the next one.
Oh. Okay. And there's 10 total, right?
I think it's only 9.
Only 9, so there's 2 left. Okay, and next week's episode is
3 left. This was 6.
Oh, this was 6. I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. 7, 8, 9. Okay, right. So next week's episode is sort of like it's like a pause on the present day story. And it looks like it's just going to be about Ellie when she gets infected.
Yes. So that is actually the DLC of the game. That was a downloadable add-on that was a prequel to the story, where you just find out what happened with Ellie, and how she got bit in the first place.
Yeah. It looks like the actress that's in that with her is the girl that was in A Wrinkle in Time, and she's been in a few different like movies and stuff too. It's going to play her friend in that episode.
Yeah, I didn't recognize the actress' name, but I'm sure.
Yeah. So I was wondering, just out of curiosity's sake, is what's her face? Maria, is she African American in the game?
She's not. She's a white character in the game.
Yeah. See, this is actually one thing I really like about this show is I feel like they really like diversify the show, but I feel like it doesn't feel as awkward or forced as like it will on our Marvel shows that we talk about. You know?
Yeah. Well, again, I think this has to do with the level of establishment of the characters. Like, the smaller the character is, the less likely you're going to be annoyed by any kind of change to it, whether that be race or gender or anything like that. And in this case, like I said, Marie is not a big doesn't have a big role in the game. Her role is important because she's married to Tommy, and she other than that, she really just disapproves of Tommy going off and getting himself killed potentially by taking Ellie. So there's a lot more. They just did a lot more. So I think, like, if they, I guess they sort of did change the race of Joel, because I guess Joel is like a white guy from Texas rather than a Spanish guy from Texas.
Right.
But the larger the character, the more not problematic, the more annoyed people get about the change.
Right. I think that, like, with him, I haven't really seen anybody complaining about him being the actor. I think just because everyone loves Pedro Pascal so much.
Yeah, like I always think of I want to say it was Oscar Isaac in an SNL monologue. Like, he mentioned something about being so like white passing or something like, or white acceptable or something like that. I think Pedro Pascal fits in that exact same boat for some people like that. Yeah. I obviously don't have a problem with different races and acting and whatever.
No, and across the board, the acting in the show has been exceptional. Pretty much with HBO shows, the acting usually is top notch. But this show has been great. And did you watch like the behind the scenes stuff for this episode?
I did, yes.
Yeah. So I mean, like you had said, some of the things in the show are very, very similar. They were saying how that scene between Joel and Ellie was very, very similar to the game, and that they were saying that it was very difficult for the actors to film that scene in the show too.
Yeah, because apparently they have quite the bond on the set. Both of Game of Thrones. Pedro Pascal's sister is trans, and Ellie, not Ellie. Bella Ramsey identifies as non-binary, I believe.
Oh, okay. I did not know either of those. That's interesting.
Oh.
Okay.
So they've quite heavily bonded offset as well. Off screen as on screen.
Yeah, I think that was actually the one type of casting that people did complain. They did complain about Ellie, I think, because they wanted Elliot Page to play her, right? Because like that's
too old, way too old at this point.
Oh, right, exactly. But like people were pointing out how like that Ellie looks just like Ellen Page did at the time that they made.
Yes. This was one of the I would say earlier PS3 games.
Yeah.
And there was this game, and was it Heavy Rain? Basically, there were two PlayStation exclusive games that like heavily made a character look like Ellen Page, and it was like really weird. And had this been 10 years ago, of course you absolutely should try and cast her, but now, based on Elliot Page's age, there's no way you can cast him in that role.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's just making me want to watch more Umbrella Academy, which I know is coming our way.
Yes.
So do you have anything else you want to say about episode 6 of The Last of Us?
No, I think I'm good. You know what? I want to mention one funny thing actually.
Sure.
I'm as I mentioned before, I'm rewatching the scenes of the game because I don't have time to play the whole game again.
Yes.
And there's this one, the opening scene of like the next episode that I'm expecting, if they do the fast forward kind of thing. There's this really memorable meme on the internet where there's a scene where there's a cute little bunny hopping in the snow, and the streamer is watching it, and she's like, "Oh, what a cute little bunny!" And then you see an arrow just go through its head. And she's like, "Oh!" And she makes this funny sound, and it's hysterical. So we're gonna have to look that up and possibly like put it on here or something like that if they do that.
Yeah, dude, I can absolutely pull it. If there's like a YouTube clip of that, I could put it on our channel. That is awesome. Okay, I want to see that now. Yeah. So now comes the awkward part where I just trash talk Ant-Man and the Wasp, and then you're gonna make me feel bad because you like it.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I'm not going to insult you in any kind of way. I heavily respect your taste. I feel like you are more forgiving of them than I am. Because
I think I'm a lot easier to please in regards. It takes some significant effort for me to dislike something, I think.
I just kind of personally feel like Marvel has such like a stranglehold on our culture, and that like Marvel comics, like that's what people perceive as comic books as Marvel, right? And it's like if you essentially are the thing that everyone is watching, that everyone is interested in, everyone's excited about, like you should deliver. And I feel like this movie has really made me think like, wait, did I actually really like some of these? So it has made me change my ranking of a lot of these movies, especially the Phase 4 movies.
I want to go back and really reevaluate my ranking again. I almost want to rewatch everything, but then I think about, oh my God, it's 31 movies. Like, how long is that going to take me to watch?
It's fucking crazy. So do you want to flip the script? Do you actually want to do the ranking first, and then we can talk about? Okay. Sure. All right. So for those of you guys that are like our diehard fans, all four of you that watch all of our videos, you know that me and Brian rank our Marvel movies every time there is a new release. So do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first for the rankings?
Yeah, I'll go first. That's fine. Okay. So I'll just run through this real fast, and I'll just stop a little bit around where I'm placing it.
Got it.
So 31, Iron Man 2, Incredible Hulk, Thor: Dark World, Doctor Strange, Captain Marvel, Iron Man, Thor, Ant-Man, Shang-Chi, Iron Man 3, Guardians 1, Age of Ultron, Captain America 1, Spider-Man Far From Home, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. So this is Ant-Mid for me, just like you said.
On Twitter, yes.
Number 16 for me.
Numbers. Okay.
And beyond that, I have Black Widow, Black Panther, Spider-Man Homecoming, Eternals, Thor, Love and Thunder, Doctor Strange 2, Wakanda Forever, Civil War, Guardians 2, Avengers, Infinity War, Winter Soldier, Ragnarok, Endgame, No Way Home.
Interesting. Okay. I probably said this before, but your ranking of Iron Man is like really low.
Yeah, I liked it. I think it was. I think Robert Downey Jr. is really good in the role, but I think that's really the only thing that's really exceptional about the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, when I was working on my list today, I kept getting 30 on here, and I'm like, what the fuck? Why do I only have 30? There's 31 movies. And I realized that I completely and utterly forgot about Eternals. Like, I completely forgot.
Pretty much everyone did.
Yeah, Marvel is certainly like just making it as if it didn't happen at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe, but they are still pushing the Eternals in comics. We just had Axe Judgment, the Avengers, X-Men, Eternals. So I don't think they're quite forgotten about. I just think that, and they've even said this officially, that they're going to space these things out, especially the TV shows, a little more moving forward, to avoid things like last summer where we rolled Moon Knight into Miss Marvel into She-Hulk, and they all sort of overlapped. It was excessive.
Yeah.
And that I think that's a good thing, but that's going to push things back around, and Yeah, Eternals does feel like the most isolated movie out of everything. So I can see how it might seem like it's forgotten, but I don't think it's going to be. I'd be curious to see if we see some kind of connection in Guardians, actually. I mean, it's cosmic level.
I was thinking about that too. And I have some Guardian stuff to talk about. We talk about Ant-Man and the Wasp too. But I'll do my ranking real quick. At 31, I have The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor: The Dark World. Ant-Man is 28. Ant-Man and the Wasp, 27. Spider-Man Far From Home, I actually really don't like that one, is 26. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania is 25 for me.
Okay.
So I might have been a Gen Zer and called it Ant Mid, but it's actually pretty low on my list, right?
Ant Low.
Ant Low, that's right. So then we get to Black Widow. I totally restructured my whole list. Doctor Strange, the first one. Thor: Love and Thunder at 22. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Eternals. Captain America, the First Avenger. Captain Marvel. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Iron Man 3. At 15, I have Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Avengers: Age of Ultron. Thor. Spider-Man: Homecoming is 12. Spider-Man: No Way Home is 11. Iron Man is 10. Captain America: Civil War 9. Avengers 8. Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is my number 5. Avengers Endgame is my number 4. Thor: Ragnarok. Black Panther. Avengers: Infinity War.
Okay.
So there's a few that we are pretty close on, but it seems like there's been a shift.
Yeah, I think the tops and bottoms of the list are fairly similar, but the middle is where it gets confusing and different.
Yeah.
I also think I want to review my own list because I definitely think there's some recency bias involved here. I have a lot more of the recent movies higher than they probably should be.
Yeah.
But I really do need to go back and reevaluate because I think early on you're just so excited that there's comic book movies and they connect like a comic book, and I think that there's a point where you have to reevaluate them as a whole. And kind of reassess there rather than based on some hazy memories of them. Like I'm pretty sure that my top 5, 6, or 7 are going to stay exactly the same, and I'm pretty sure the bottom 5 or 6 will probably be the same too. But that whole middle section there, it's just like I don't know what the hell's going to happen.
Really, really good point. Let's take that point and roll with it. I feel like with the big two, Marvel and DC, every so often now in modern comics, you have like a standalone series like All-Star Superman or like Tom King's Batman run or something, where it's like it's a vision of someone, it's sort of by itself, it doesn't connect to anything else. And then I feel like everything else is either just kind of filler as they set up for an event, or it's like something that ties in with an event. And I feel like that is what modern big two comics are. Would you agree or no?
Yeah, and it's clear to me that those creators that have that kind of free reign to kind of create something that they envisioned or generally superior to the things that are just trying to work within the larger existing world and whatever's going on at the time.
Right. So don't you feel like the MCU by phase 5 now, 31 movies in, kind of mimics that?
Yeah, of course. But at the same time, though, like every movie can't be at a certain level of conflict or excitement or even comedy. You have to have some kind of variance. There has to be things in the middle of the road there. Otherwise, so that's how some of those other movies will stand out. If everything was, and everything kind of is sort of middle of the road these days, I suppose, and maybe that's just the problem. There's too many things, and there's too much middle of the road, like what we're saying here.
Yeah. Well, I think that things are middle of the road in terms of quality. However, if you're kind of talking about a sort of one and done story or a story where the stakes are not as high, I would greatly appreciate that. Like I saw a writer say something along the lines of like, everything is like tied into this greater picture now. Everything is tied to like a greater conflict or a big crisis for all the Marvel movies. and like they wanted like kind of the more standalone movies. Like the original Ant-Man is kind of like a standalone movie. Like there's ties into other things, but like it just kind of feels like its own story. And it has Ant-Man in it. Like
this movie is the settiest setup movie that ever did set.
Right, and there are some really bad setup movies like Batman v Superman and Iron Man 2. Those are some really bad examples, you know?
Yeah. Yes.
But for this, the reason why I'm comparing it to comics is because it's pretty standard now, standard procedure, where you have like a prelude to a crossover, and you might have a character that's like a lovable character, but not a super powerful character, and they'll get killed. And that's sort of like the big thing that will lead into the crossover, right? I talked about this before on our channel. The example I used was right before Infinite Crisis. You had Ted Kord, Blue Beetle, get shot by Max Lord, right? And that was like the big, like, oh shit, right? I feel like this movie kind of was supposed to be that. And here comes spoilers, if anyone hasn't seen Ant-Man and the Wasp. But like they fucking kill Kang in the end of the movie.
Did they though?
They say they did, but okay. So maybe they don't literally kill him. Maybe he's not dead, right? But they fucking neuter his character. Like everyone's talking about how Jonathan Majors is so awesome in this movie, and he is. However, this guy who's supposed to be like the Thanos of this next phase is a guy that gets taken out by these sort of forgettable nobodies. And then
he gets beaten in a fist fight by Ant-Man, who is
doesn't have any
combat training or like that. And I get that. And you could argue that, you know, those ants like did a number on him beforehand or something like that. He was hurting, his technology was damaged and all that. But still, it does kind of devalue his the level of his threat by a single character essentially taking him out. And I say single character because to me, like the Wasp is like barely visible in this movie.
Yes,
like
yes.
She was there and did something, but she really did not have anything to do in this movie whatsoever.
No, I mean I feel like, you know, the way that our culture is, the way that social media is, you couldn't make it just Ant-Man Quantumania because you included the Wasp in the title last. I was about to say episode, but last movie. But the thing is that like you really shouldn't call it Ant-Man and the Wasp because she's just not present. She's not really a character in it.
You know, I think it was worthwhile to have her as a character in the second movie, and be in the title. It makes total sense to me.
Yeah.
This movie, and I'm kind of curious if this has anything to do with like Evangeline Lilly's, real life political stances and anti-vaccination stances, and if they kind of diminished her role because of it or not. But yeah, it feels like, you know, she didn't really have anything to do in this movie, and they just didn't want to take away the name because, that's not progress.
Yeah,
progress.
It's actually really interesting stuff, right? Because of her and Letitia Wright, they're signed on for so many movies. They're in these prominent roles, but because of what they say in real life, it affects how they're placed in these movies. And they were able to kind of just scoop out Evangeline Lilly from this movie. Letitia Wright, they had like a double quandary because she did all this controversial stuff, and then you had, Chadwick Boseman die. So it's like, well, we have to fill in that gap. What are we supposed to do? So I think that they sort of just had no choice but to make Shuri be the Black Panther.
Yeah, I imagine that had Chadwick Boseman not died, like Letitia Wright would have had a much smaller role in that second movie.
Oh, yeah, almost like a non. She would be like Wasp in this movie.
I think she maybe even taken the role of like Riri in the movie, essentially, much smaller.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, I think that what they would have done was they would have combined like Shuri and her relationship with Namor in the movie Wakanda Forever, and then just mixed it with Riri, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so okay.
How about this? Did you like anything about the movie?
Yes, there's one thing I like about the movie. Okay, all right. I'll say the one thing I like, and I can just keep ranting about what I don't like. But I want to hear what you liked about it too. But okay, the one thing that I liked is that when Kang is talking about his motives and why he does what he does. He mentions how there's these incursions and that the incursions will destroy all of reality. And that is a direct reference to Jonathan Hickman and his new Avengers. And anytime you're going to fucking reference Jonathan Hickman in a movie, I'm all on board for that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
So that's the one thing I fucking like about this movie. The one thing.
Not even any performances or anything like that. Any choices by anything anywhere. Nothing everything bad. I mean, what I'm really getting to is, what did you think about MODOK?
Oh Christ!
See, right. Now I loved. I think that's the only way that you can pull off a live action MODOK in a serious setting. Is that kind of a goofy thing?
All right. Look, you know that I love you and we get along with each other really well, okay? But we're gonna Siskel and Ebert this shit for a second, okay? Like everybody fucking says that, oh well, that's the way it looks in the comics. MODOK's supposed to look ridiculous, but it's like MODOK is drawn into a comic book universe where everything is equal to each other. Like everything is weird and over exaggerated, and he's the most over exaggerated. But it's still like he fits into that universe. In this, it looks like his face. It just doesn't. It has that uncanny valley thing where you look at his face and you're like, that doesn't work. That doesn't fit. It doesn't look like.
Yeah, it definitely looks kind of weird and funny, but I think it's intentional. I mean, I think how they explain it is that he shrunk down to the quantum realm, but it didn't happen, right? His head didn't shrink; it's the same size as his body. I think that explanation works sort of, and it does look really weird and awkward. But I thought it worked, and I really enjoyed it. I laughed at almost everything he said.
I mean, he was goofy and stuff like that. Honestly, I did try to think, like, how would you put MODOK in a Marvel movie? Like, how would it work? MODOK is created by AIM. So obviously you're connected to AIM, but AIM doesn't really have a presence in the movies anymore or at all, really. And, I mean, he's not going to be scary. He's always going to be silly. But I just feel like even in like that Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes show and stuff, they had better versions of him, even though he's still silly and stupid.
Fair point, but I didn't mind this change. I laughed at everything, especially the "Am I an Avenger now?" line. I was dying at that. Yeah, it was goofy, but again, I don't think. I mean, also given the fact that Paul Rudd is in this movie, Paul Rudd is a a comedic actor for the most part. And I think it worked. Honestly, I think it worked.
Okay, well, you bring up Paul Rudd, right? I left that movie theater thinking, okay, this movie has Paul Rudd, it has Bill Murray, it has Michelle Pfeiffer, it has Michael Douglas. These people are in this movie, and yet it's this subpar movie. You have fucking Bill Murray in the movie. He's barely funny. Michael Douglas is an incredible actor. Michelle Pfeiffer is an incredible actress. Like, they are just like pretty much like wasted. Like Michael.
Well, Michelle Pfeiffer, I thought, was really good in like the first half of the movie, but eventually she kind of becomes like a captive. It's at some point, and then it's like she seemed like this important badass and important to the plot, and then it just kind of fell off.
Yeah.
Michael Douglas was the same level as I think as the last two. I think, but to me, the biggest thing was how little Evangeline Lilly had to do.
Yeah.
To me, you almost could have called this. You could have titled this movie Kang or something like that. I feel like there was such a prominence built on that, even though he's not in this movie as much as you'd think.
Right.
But to me, that's. How do you get people to go? You remember a long time ago I said that some characters they can cast, some of the bigger name characters they can cast a lesser known actor, and some of the smaller characters they have to cast a bigger name actor. This is absolutely that scenario here. Paul Rudd is a bigger name, is a known quantity name, and Ant-Man is not. Ant-Man is a lower tier character. I mean, he's a great character in the comics, obviously. All three versions. Hank and Scott, and then what the hell's the
the evil one?
Yeah, the evil one. He's like it's like an Irish name or something like that.
Yeah. He's like Denny O'Grady or something. I'll look him up while you're.
Yeah, I think it actually is O'Grady.
Yeah. think
But
Albert Kirkman made him too.
yeah, but it's not as high of a level of character. So that's why they have to hire Michael Douglas, Michelle Pfeiffer, Paul Rudd, and then now Jonathan Majors too, who's kind of an up and coming actor. Maybe he kind of fits in both lanes there. But yeah, I think that you have to add things to make this movie desirable. I think if you just had a movie that was Ant-Man and you just had another heist movie or just low level movie, like people wouldn't go see it. You have to build. The story needs to be built up, and something has to be sacrificed in order to build it up. And this is something that, like, what else could they have done really that would have been interesting to people? The sell of this movie was we're introducing the next Thanos, essentially. That's the flaw of seeing this movie.
Right. Okay. Well. Okay. So Thor, right? You have two kind of lackluster. The first Thor movie I actually like. It's kind of high on my list. And then everyone says Thor: The Dark World is like the worst or like close to the worst Marvel movie, right?
Agreed.
Then you bring in Taika Waititi for the third one, and it's like Ragnarok's very high on most people's Marvel rankings. You can like give a franchise a boost of energy and stuff by bringing in somebody interesting. I don't think that Peyton Reed is a bad director. I don't want to talk badly about someone, but like his other movies include Bring It On, Down with Love, The Breakup, and Yes Man. So he directs like comedies, and sometimes they have exciting kind of visuals in them, but it's not like this sort of creative, weird, epic vision or anything like that. It's not a Taika Waititi. It's not Edgar Wright. It's not James Gunn. It's like someone that's kind of like a work for hire comedy director. And I think the example I can think of is that scene with Bill Murray when they're in that alien city or fucking quantum verse, whatever, quantum realm city. You have interesting looking creatures. However, they're kind of indispensable. Like you could just, nothing's really striking. Like it's creative, but it's not like exciting. Like the Mos Eisley Cantina scene, right, in Star Wars. George Lucas always hated that because he felt like he wished he had more money to make better creatures in the cantina. But yet the way that scene's edited, the music, the way that it's filmed, even though he considers them subpar creatures, everyone remembers that fucking cantina scene because of the way that it's
so different for the time, I think, and I think we're almost desensitized. Like, how many movies have we gone to these weird alien places and there's always weird aliens around? Like how, do you want them to all be these extremely memorable things that you're never going to see or hear about ever again? We want them to just kind of be there and look weird and just kind of be background filler like they're supposed to
be. My approach to that is it like, oh, well, it's like good enough. Is like good enough okay, right? And I feel like if your expectation is you're going to make like $1 billion, nothing should be good enough. It should be like the best it can be. And I feel like with those scenes, with the kind of creatures, like if you look at like The Force Awakens, when they go to like Maz Kanata's palace, wherever the fuck she has, right? Like even though that's not as good as the cantina scene, it's still more memorable and interesting than this. And even in like The Last Jedi, when they go to Canto Bight, that's more memorable, right? If you look at fucking Hellboy, the second one, when they go to that market, the troll market or whatever, that's more interesting. Now, that's Guillermo del Toro, right? That's like another level. But it's like, if you're going to make a fucking movie that's supposed to make $1 billion, like, get someone that maybe doesn't have as much pedigree as Guillermo del Toro, but like, just make it more fucking interesting. Like, Taika Waititi is elevated because of Thor Ragnarok. Like, he was on the rise, but Thor Ragnarok, like, boosted his career. Like, you need more people like that,
True. Yeah. So maybe they just took a chance on it. It's just not really panning out as well. Because it's kind of Ant-Mid.
Ant-Mid. I know. I'm sorry. I don't mean to rant. It's just like I want to go see these things, and I want to at least feel like, hey, maybe it had this flaw and it had that flaw, but it was still good. And I feel like I'm just kind of apologizing more and more for these movies that I'm like, come on, you could just make money at this point. Like, you don't even have to worry about it. So much of the work is already done. It's I don't know.
Yeah. So I mean, ultimately here, I think that the problem that most people have with this movie is that it's essentially a setup movie. And I think there needs to be setup movies. You can't just go from extreme threat to extreme threat without any kind of break in between.
Right.
So this was a setup movie. They sacrificed a character that would have difficulty standing on its own, and they bolstered it with bigger name actors and a bigger villain presence that the character would normally face. And this is kind of what we get. So I almost kind of agree with you. It's Ant-Man, but I still enjoyed it. I always liked Paul Rudd. I thought Jonathan Majors was great. I enjoyed the father-daughter aspect of this movie. The family stuff and dad stuff always gets to me in every freaking movie. I did enjoy MODOK, and I think they did a decent enough job setting up Kang here. I don't think he's dead. I think that we're going to see more of him. I think that Kang's comic background is so wacky and convoluted that there's a million avenues we can take here to explain what happened to him there. I also kind of appreciated like the subtle nods to Loki. Obviously, we got a post-credit scene that seems to be a scene from Loki season 2. But I really liked that Janet explained the quantum, these cities over there, or the whatever we're calling it, that existed below the void, and the void being the place at the end of time in Loki where that dragony thing was eating all the variants essentially. I like that connectivity there. I thought it was a nice subtle nod. There was something else I wanted to say too.
Wait. Can you elaborate on that? So you're saying that like
she said the quantum verse or the quantum realm exists below the void. That's why Kang was exiled there, because it exists outside of the multiverse essentially, below it or something like that. So that's why Kang was placed there by the Council of Kangs, and why he couldn't escape.
Okay, so that's one thing that I wrote into my own personal notes that I kind of issue with too. It's like, why does he have a fucking ship there? Like, if you were going to exile a person on an island, you wouldn't like leave them with a boat that's broken, like you would just leave them on the island.
What about World War Hulk? Not World War Hulk, Planet Hulk. They sent him off in like an escape pod essentially,
Okay.
They couldn't outright kill him, so they just trapped him in this little thing, and
Okay. And you're saying like the only way to get him,
so he couldn't escape.
Okay. All right. I'll give you that one. Okay. So look. All right. So I'll say one last thing, and then if you got any other stuff to add, but like when I think about comics, like when I think about like an Ant-Man comic, right? Even in the comics, people are more excited about Wolverine, Spider-Man, anybody over Ant-Man, right? Like he's low on most people's lists, the comic book character. But you'll still have a person like Al Ewing or Mark Waid or somebody that like loves Ant-Man or loves that lore, and they'll just jump at the opportunity to take that character and work with that character and put their own spin on it. And I feel like, because modern comics definitely suffer from like always having events, and like they even like repeat events now, like Civil War 2 and Secret Wars 2, all this kind of shit. But you still, in modern Marvel comics, you still have these writers that have been around for a while too, but they just want to put their own spin, and they do an interesting, quirky story. And I feel like you can do that with these movies, and audiences can appreciate it. It's not that far-fetched. Like, there's a bunch of far-fetched, weird shit in this movie, but it's not excitingly far-fetched. It's just like, oh, look, that's a broccoli guy, or oh, look, that building is alive, it can move. Like, it's not like interesting Grant Morrison kind of shit. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know. I got vibes of the Living Rocket Treehouse from Saga from that. I'll take any chance I get to reference Saga.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I again, like this is a setup movie, and I'm apologizing for it being a setup movie. Essentially, I think it's okay that there's a setup movie. I think that if you have every movie be that unique take, that unique vision, it kind of detracts from the larger scale story. And maybe it's time for this larger scale story to end. Maybe it's like this experiment has just gone on too much. I've said before that this scenario, this 31 movie connected universe thing, will never happen again. Will never happen again. This is a once in a lifetime thing, and that's it.
Wow.
So this, and things will try, and people will get burnt out, and 10 years from now or 20 years from now, they'll just be like single movies or something like that, or they don't need to be movies. They'll just be shit, just shot straight into our head. Who knows? It's like you make your own TV shows with your brain now. That's how you entertain yourself. And you get your friends to watch your self brain created shows. I don't know how it's going to evolve, but this is something that will not be replicated and will not be replicated successfully. But it's to be determined how it's going to end and go down in history. Essentially, is it gonna be memorable and looked upon favorably? Like how we think about Infinity War and Endgame. Or is it going to be like, oh, God, these fucking guys went on too long, and what the fuck is this? And they ruined the X-Men and all this other shit.
Yeah. Dude, I can't wait till you can shoot your brain movie into my eyes, and we can watch like a live-action Transformers More Than Meets the Eye adaptation that has like the 80s soundtrack on it. Oh, my God.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. That's what's going to be. That's my first brain movie.
That'll get the Ant-Man and the Wasp
brain movie.
That'll get the Ant-Man and the Wasp taste out of my mouth by that point. But no, it's fun talking about this stuff just because I know that you care about the source material as much as I do, and you have very good opinions. Like I just think you're just kind of more apologetic than I am, and I'm glad that you got something.
I totally agree with that.
What's that?
I definitely agree with that. I definitely am more of an apologist.
Yeah. For those of you that are watching at home, if you guys want to let us know, did you like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania? I'm actually like you more on Brian's side or you're more on my side, we will see. But we have at least one more The Last of Us coming up next week. And then at that point, once Last of Us is like winding down, then The Mandalorian's starting up. So
yeah, isn't it like next week or like 10 days or something like that? Something crazy like that?
March 1st.
Oh, shit. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to have double the Pedro Pascal.
Yes. We got his name right that time too, right? And it's Gabriel Luna, not Diego Luna.
Yes.
All right, cool. So anyway, it's been a blast, and we will see you guys next week.